there was one thing that troubled me. I don't want to name the individual, but the comment was to the effect that only transients ride the bus in public transit. I know that not to be true from both personal experience, and I can see many of you in the room, and I know your stories, and I know that you are students that are regularly taking the bus. I, too, take the bus. So mayors also take the bus in public transit. And I bring that up to say that when I was a kid who didn't have a car, whose mom had to work, I relied on the bus to go to high school, to do extracurriculars, to set myself up so I could go to college and law school. So I bring all this up to say, when we talk about who rides public transit, all I ask is that let's be inclusive of everybody's lived experience and try to take the stigma out of who uses transit like that. And to our colleagues from my Burbank who are in the room or watching live covering this, and from Burbank Leader, I have a great idea. Next month's Mayor's Podcast, let's do it live on Burbank Bus, and let's talk and really expose the city's sites to how our transit infrastructure works for some and how it still leaves too many people behind.
Burbank Talks presents another edition of Ask the Mayor, a monthly forum giving the mayor of Burbank an opportunity to answer questions from you, the listener, and address issues important to the city of Burbank. Now, let's join our hosts as they welcome the mayor of Burbank.
Hello, Burbank. Craig Sherwood here with you once again, of course, with Ross Benson.
As they say, tally-ho, we got a show with the mayor and special guests. Let's hit the road.
Absolutely. And where are we? We are on a Burbank bus.
Oh, my gosh.
Why are we on a Burbank bus? Well, here's what happened. The mayor, back during oral communications a few months ago, had one of the constituents came up and spoke and said, well, I don't feel safe on a Burbank bus. And the mayor says, well, hard to believe, but I'm going to tell you what I do. That's the mayor's show, and we're going to do it on a Burbank bus, which I gulped and said, uh-oh. And guess what? We're doing it on a Burbank bus. So, Ross, you enjoying the bus right now?
You know, the ride is great. I'm buckled in. I got the senior citizen sign over me. I qualify. Who's our special guest today?
Well, we have Mayor Nick Schultz with us, as always. Mayor, good to see you.
Hey, thank you guys so much for doing this. I've been trying to shake things up the last few years, and I think this is a first. But I'm really excited to be joined today by not just an incredible staff member, but I like to call him the real mayor of Burbank. Assistant Director of Community Development, David Kriske, is with us, our transpo expert.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
Whoa.
Excited to be here.
We've got all the answers to everything.
There we go. We got a little applause for you. Look at that. We have all,
you know, Mayor, I will admit that David and I go back many years. I won't say how. You had a full head of hair.
Yes, it's receding.
So did I. But I started shooting, and David, we know a lot of city employees, and he's a czar. He is the czar.
I call him the traffic czar of Burbank. Absolutely. There's nothing in this city that if it moves, he knows about it.
That's right.
And so having him on today's show is 100% about transportation in Burbank. I'm going to ask you, we got some tough questions for you, and hopefully we can get some good answers for
David's ready for all those answers.
You know, and that's the nice thing, Mayor, having David with us. You've been around so many years, but he's been here before when we had dirt roads.
Oh,
not that long.
Not long.
long, but not that long. No. In all seriousness, I hope that for future segments of the Mayor Show, look, it's an incredible demand on David's time, and I appreciate you joining us. As policymakers, as a mayor, I'm happy to be here, but I think that the chance to really hear from someone who's doing so much good work for the city, so knowledgeable, knows where we have been and where we're going, I think that your listeners are really going to they're really going to enjoy this treat of listening to David, and obviously I'll try to pepper in a few policy observations as well. You know,
and David and I, we've ridden in a Cyclovia together. He is a bike rider. I mean, when you ride the bike to work, he's ridden that event. We've done Cyclovias together. He now pushes a baby stroller at events.
Yeah, that's the times have changed with children. Probably my riding is a little bit less now, but yes, definitely.
Great to have you, David.
Thank you very much.
Well, so we have some questions. And by the way, it was very nice you to arrange to get us a bus today.
All David.
This bus is not in service. You know, we thought it would be better just so we don't have to pull the Star Trek things and go one way or go the other way all of a sudden and try to time that. But it's not in service, so we don't have to worry about any passengers getting in the way or anything else.
But I will say, Craig, where we're set, just so I can set the picture for people.
Yeah, tell us.
We're at the Metrolink station on the Front Street side. I don't think I've ever sat in a bus at the Metrolink station. I've taken Metrolink when we've done Cyclovia. But this is kind of neat to be here. There's a lot of people getting on that train, and the MTA buses that keep pulling in and so forth. Burbank has a robust transportation, and
And this is the hub. This is the hub right here.
We do. It's we were one of the very first Metrolink stations. We opened. I think we were one of the inaugural stations back in the early '90s when Metrolink started, and we are definitely top 2 or top 3 for ridership in the system. At least folks coming in the morning and leaving in the evening, and that's a testament to all of the jobs that we have here. So yeah, we've always had a very successful downtown station, and now we now have 2 more stations, 2 by the airport, one that was also put in place many years ago, then one that was put in just about 6 or 7 years ago. So
yeah, years ago, people don't realize. I talk to people that live here in Burbank and work downtown. Instead of paying a couple $1,000s a year for parking downtown, which I hear it costs now, you come down here, you get on the train, you take out your laptop, you do some work, and before you know it, you're pulling into Union Station.
You're about 20 minutes to downtown LA from here, and it's I like to say we don't have a subway, but this is our subway, and one of the things the city's constantly working on with our other regional officials is trying to make sure that the service coming in and out of Burbank on the Metrolink is like your subway. It's going to be every 15 minutes or less. It's all day, and that's what we're working on, and there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen.
We are going to be talking about down the line too. So, but the first question, let's get back to that council meeting. Let's get back to the person who complained about security and everything else. And so let's talk about safety, okay? Has there been any serious incidents with the Burbank bus system whatsoever? As far as I can't remember any serious accidents, of course, but as far as just personal safety, we hear a lot on the metro lately about drivers being stabbed and passengers being shot. I mean, that's, of course, they're in a little different area. But how safe are the Burbank buses for the average passenger?
So Burbank Bus, thankfully, we have not had any issues like what we've heard in the news in the metro system, and that safety is a big issue right now. Luckily, no, we are very safe. We have not had major incidents. We have a lot of safety elements on our system to help people make sure they feel safe and secure. We have cameras in our bus. In fact, I think you can see one in the corner for security purposes. We have all of our buses are connected to GPS, which the main purpose is to give information to our riders about when we're arriving to a stop, but it also allows dispatch and others to know exactly where the vehicle is at all times. There's emergency procedures if the driver has an incident or needs help. There's a kind of a panic system, and so we do have safety in mind. And then I'll say too that Burbank Police Department they use our buses occasionally for training purposes. So our police also are trained to respond to incidents on transit vehicles, whether it's Metro or Burbank Bus. And so I think the safety issue elements that we have in place and the fact that we haven't had any incidents, we are we are a safe city. We stay within and in and around Burbank, and so I think it's definitely not the situation that you hear elsewhere in LA on Metro and another.
And that's a testament right there that Burbank, how safe our community is. It's totally different as soon as you go over that border, as you and I know, into LA or into other parts of the city. And in Burbank, the riders that want this need it. You don't have you never see, I listen to the police radio, you never hear them call for a person that's, asleep on the bus or drunk on the bus. People use this for kind of different. And here in Burbank, that's probably one of the testaments why it's safe.
Let me ask real fast. If somebody did feel uncomfortable on the bus for some reason, either somebody was harassing them or they just didn't, what's the person do? So let the driver know immediately, or what's the procedure for that?
Yes, I think any rider, if they feel uncomfortable or feel threatened about what they're doing, is always able to get the attention of the driver so that they can potentially take action. Certainly, if it's an emergency, an actual real emergent thing, just like if you were on the street and you see an emergency, you're always welcome to call 911. Explain to dispatch that you're on a bus, try and give the location. Likely, if it's an emergency, our driver is going to be doing a similar situation on some of the things that they have. But yeah, always feel free to let our driver know that there's an issue. that's always available.
Well, I feel terrible because the name of the show is Ask the Mayor, and I just I just interrupted the mayor, so I feel terrible. So please, Mayor, what were we going to say?
No. I mean, honestly, I'm just glad that y'all get to really see how lucky we are at City Hall to have someone like David there to advise us, who really knows the ins and outs of our transit system and what we're facing. The only thing I would add is, part of your question was, how did we end up here today, other than me opening my mouth and getting us in trouble? Look, there is a stigma with public transportation, and I hear a lot of times that folks feel uncomfortable taking it. Look, there are legitimate concerns about public safety, and those are much broader than applicable to just Burbank Bus. I wanted to lead off by just really emphasizing what David said. We have a well-run, very safe, very efficient Burbank Bus system here in our community, and I encourage people to ride it. I think you'll find it to be efficient, affordable, very safe to use. And to the extent that there are broader public safety issues that we have to address, that's not limited to Burbank. We obviously are dealing with upticks in crime across the region, and that's going to affect you whether you're out in a park or walking on the sidewalk or on a bus. And we certainly have, and we've talked about it on other shows, we can certainly talk about how we address that. But in Burbank, we really do have this incredible resource that I think is underutilized. And I just really want to, before we go on to our next question, just thank you all for making the time tonight, because part of my goal in having this episode here on the Burbank Bus is to raise awareness about the fact that it's here. It can help you get from point A to point B. It's available to Burbankers. And David, correct me if I'm wrong, based off of our last council meeting, it is now entirely free for Burbank middle and high school students.
Well, I was just going to bring that up. I know last night Craig had said on the week that was, that last city council meeting, you guys voted. My son used to take, 20 years ago, Got Wheels. I worked down on the west part of Burbank, and he'd go from Muir, and it's the safest thing. And like Craig said, we'd rather see kids get on this bus where it's safe, you have your safety things around, versus a kid walking the street, and so forth. I mean, that should give parents in Burbank, all they have to do is show their school ID, I believe.
Yes.
And they can get on the bus. For parents that work, I tell you, being a parent, the mayor's married, you're both parents, you worry about your kid 24 hours a day. And where are they? How are they getting around? That was a fantastic move. And I'm glad you guys included as the parochial schools.
I don't know if the elementary schools do this, but I know that the middle schools and the high schools, all students are required to have an ID on them at all times now. They have to actually wear it on the outside. That's part of the new security.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if elementary schools are doing that. They would have it. But I think if a 9-year-old kid goes to the bus, there's no question that he's a kid and probably needs a ride. So I don't think that's you don't need an ID to make sure they're a student or something.
So I'm just so glad that you guys, it's been a long time. We've missed Burbank Bus. The kids. Greg used to be a coach up at Muir, and he said the kids that they would pack that, but they were the smaller bus. They weren't a bus like this. They were, vans and so forth, a lot smaller, 14 passengers.
20 passengers, similar to
20 minutes for it to make its round trip, and then pick another group out, then another 20 minutes and another period.
It'll take a while for the kids to get used to this, but again, a service that Burbank is providing, thinking of the kids, that was a fantastic. I know it was voted 5-0.
Yep.
I'm glad to see that. I think you guys, your department has worked, Karen Pan, and she made the report. I know known Karen since she started with the city, and now a parent herself, and just thinking of those things for a parent is great.
Very true.
Okay, so you know from our questions before and over the time, I am critical of the Burbank Bus. I think the Burbank Bus is a great idea. I think it's something that's really needed, but I think it just isn't executed right.
That's your train.
I hope that train wasn't planning on stopping here because it just went right on through.
No, we've sat at Patty's doing before our show, and counted 3 buses.
I actually call them the Burbank limousines because at most we'll have one person on them. So,
and that's not the driver.
So yeah. My question is this: is the Burbank bus system really serving the needs of Burbank residents?
Well, I'll jump in and just because David's going to field a lot of questions, I want to give him at least a little bit of a break. But David, definitely piggyback off of me. Correct me on anything. Look, I would say for the most part, yes, but there's always room for improvement. I mean, you look at the success of the pink route. I mean, and I know it took a little bit of a dip even through the pandemic, after the pandemic, but you see the ridership numbers, and I think there are people that are using that. It's going places where people want to take them. Now, when you look at the green route, which was discontinued, about a year ago, David?
Yes.
We discontinued that route, and we're going back to the drawing board and looking at what is a route that would actually serve the needs of the Burbank community. And I don't want to get ahead of us because I know you have questions on it, but we've talked at council about the need of a north to south running route in the city of Burbank. So I would say, yes, I do think it's serving the needs of some residents. I think there's always room to improvement, and I think the future of that green route and how we choose to reconfigure it, that could really supercharge ridership if we do it right. But David, there's probably more that I missed.
No, that's a fair point and a fair observation. I think as long as we've had the service, it's always been a tension between kind of two major markets: the market of employees and folks that work in Burbank. We have a tremendous imbalance between the number of people that work here and that live here. And so, what does that mean? Everyone's coming in from outside to go to work here, and so Burbank Bus is responding to that phenomenon, and its primary need has always been to serve folks coming into work and providing an option to driving, to helping reduce congestion, to provide a situation where if you don't want to drive, you can have an option. We've always connected from the rail stations into our centers, but we've always had, I think, kind of an underlying comment or kind of underlying criticism that it doesn't serve the residents as its primary focus, and I think that's a totally legit thing to talk about, because yes, on the other hand, this is locally funded, and we can talk about how in a minute, but it's Burbank taxpayer money, so why doesn't it serve Burbank? And I think I am welcoming the council's direction to us, which is to kind of look at that trade-off and to look and see how can we preserve what we support today, which we still have a lot of folks, even post-COVID, we still have folks coming in a lot to work here, with how can we also pivot to make it attractive for the residents to also be able to use it for better than they are today.
Well, right. You just brought up a good point. Prior to COVID, most people don't know. We have about 110,000 people living here. And during the day, when everything is up and operational, we're up over 200,000 people. I've talked to the fire department. It's at the chamber luncheon. The mayors, they talk about we double our population during the day. Now, post-COVID, those numbers I hear are starting to come back. You've reported not all these office buildings are occupied, but people are starting to come back. Now, and it's funny because the studios are slower than anything now. There's nothing going on at quite a few of the studios. And that's a big workforce, so people don't know that number really grows right here.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback on that last thing and about the north-south routes. Not only the north-south routes, but what about the whole hill area? Because I think there's no transportation at all. Glen Oaks or even Kenneth Residential is still kind of a major thoroughfare on the hillside. Why not get smaller buses and more buses and be able to serve more areas? Because I know we're up to getting to new buses. We're talking about, these are, their lifespan's about over. So why not, instead of buying these big buses, that I'm not sure how many they seat, but it's probably,
about 30 to 35.
Okay, 30 to 35. Why not get the smaller buses like Metro Micro uses that hold maybe 10 or 15 people,
right.
Get more of them, have more routes around the city?
Right.
What?
So, we also have a kind of a tension between, the size of the bus. On the one hand, our policy has always been, standardizing on a certain size because it is we have flexibility in what vehicles we have available to put on different routes. If we have different sizes, it just makes it complicated. You will see your end of the woods, only a couple of folks riding, but there are certain runs in the morning from the Metrolink where, 10, 15, sometimes even 20 folks will get on.
We're not up at that hour. Wait a minute, David. We're not up at that hour when most...
Right. Yeah, and it's actually the earlier Metrolink. So there still is a traditional commute pattern. But we don't want to be in a situation where we have larger loads at certain times of the day, and now we need to shuffle that only certain buses can be on certain routes. And so for the fixed route system, we think that, cost is pretty much the same. A lot of it's the running time and the operations and the overhead. It's not so much the vehicle cost. So we've always standardized on a fleet of this size. However, going into the hillside, we would want to look at smaller buses because partially physically they're not going to fit. And so we are part of this upcoming effort to look at our service. I think we've also heard from the council and from the community wanting to investigate some of these newer ways to provide transit that's a little more flexible, a little smaller, a little more nimble. We do have smaller vehicles available with our senior disabled service, which is our other component of Burbank Bus. There's potentially opportunities to use some of those resources. So we are keeping a lookout, but I think as long as we're in the fixed route business as a major part of the service, I think standardizing on a size is the way to go. And yeah, you won't see it full a lot on some parts of the system and in some times of the day, but there are other situations when we will need the capacity and we want to maintain flexibility.
The only other thing I would just, great explanation, David. The only thing I would just add is that when you look, Burbank Bus is not an enormous system. We have 2 current running fixed routes, and then we have a 3rd route that'll likely come back in development for the next council to decide what to do with. We have tried to prioritize a bus system that services those in our workforce to help alleviate congestion on our streets, right? Because we have a lot of folks that are working at the studios. That's important. I think that the council and our staff have definitely heard from the community that there is a balance to strike and that maybe there is better ways that we can service those who live in Burbank who don't have access to quality or reliable public transit. So, what I would say is that this has been an important topic. David and his whole team at community development, they take the charge seriously. They're working. They really are studying and trying to bring back options to the next council to really figure out a more workable, lasting system. So if you have thoughts on what you'd like to see, now is the time to submit your feedback.
I'm glad you said that. I'm going to once again kind of skip around a little bit, but staying on the same thing because I've got Ross and I, for years have talked about why don't they put trolleys in Magnolia Park and in some of these put trolleys in, and it's a great idea. But Ross, and I'm going to let him give you his ideas because they're fantastic. Well, at one time I know he went when Bob Frutos was on the council, and they used to go to a lot of dinners together. And he used to tell Bob Frutos, "We got to do trolleys. We got to do and things like that." Cities like San Luis Obispo, they have a great trolley system all around their little community. San Diego, big city like that, has a great. You get off the train down there, you jump on a trolley and go around the whole city. But Ross has a great idea how to fund and how to do a trolley. Ross, go ahead.
Let's segue into a quick commercial. Let's go into a quick commercial, and then I'll ask this question when we return because there's a technical thing I want to make sure things are working on.
Okay, let's pause for commercial, and we will be back in 1 second.
Enjoying the show right now? Thinking you may want to do your own podcast? Viber Rate Talks is renting out our podcast studio on an hourly rate. You can do audio podcasts or both audio and video, and even bring in guests to talk with. We will help you get set up on podcast platforms and start a YouTube channel, and we can edit your productions to make you look and sound your very best. If you're interested, please drop us an email at studiorentals@myburbank.com. That's studiorentals@myburbank.com, and we will get back to you. Now, back to our show.
And we're back. So,
okay, I got to say, Ross, before you ask a question, I always felt that Mayor Frutos really missed an opportunity here because, yes, he pushed for this trolley. But man, if he opened a chicken wing place, which I know he loved, he could have called it Wingstop. I mean, there might be a copyright issue, but he could have put it at the stop of one of those trolleys and made a ton of money.
Probably get a full-time job that he could enjoy.
Just don't call raising canes. That's all. Stay away from that one.
Well,
Ross, let's talk about your trolley idea.
I thought of this. We wanted to think about a trolley. We got a company here in Burbank. I think they're called West Coast Customs. They now have a ride out at Magic Mountain that they created. The guys over there are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
We are, what is this city known as? The media capital of the world. Why don't we build a trolley and get SpongeBob, on the bus, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, all the characters that are home to Burbank on that bus.
On different buses. Yeah, theme up.
But make them, the money that we're paying for these buses, make them natural gas or whatever we're going, electric. probably electric. That's what they're probably doing. And get them to the money shuffled here again through Burbank, but make them media capital of the world. You tell me people, let's say in 4 years, coming to the Olympics or any day, coming to Burbank, I want to take the shuttle. I want to take the trolley and pose with SpongeBob,
Or Mickey Mouse. Look at the statues we have. People come just to those statues and they just sit there.
And visit
Imagine
Burbank.
trolley.
Again, would love, I know there's advertisement on the outside, but on the inside, how many people, as you know, go in front of either Nickelodeon or Warner Brothers and pose in front of those, have a bus with SpongeBob as your driver? I mean, I think a ton of people would love to get on that bus and just, I would pay just to pose with. Is that a possibility or an idea or?
Well, with our vehicles, maybe that could be something interesting. We, like you said, we do advertising. We're not exactly the most popular area, and for the outside advertising, it has a lot to do with what's going on outside as much as it is in the side. But
Welcome to my Burbank.
so
we feel you.
but there's interesting things we can do with vinyl wraps, and we could do like a Visit Burbank tie-in might be interesting and especially I actually kind of like your idea about the Olympics too, because we may need to be ramping up temporary service for worldwide millions of people coming into to Burbank Airport and coming to see the game. So
you tell me. All our hotels are going to be packed.
Yep.
I've said it on all of our shows. A lot of people don't like staying in hotels downtown Hollywood because of the current crime. Every time you turn on the TV and so forth. But Burbank, it's safe. These hotels in Burbank are booked all the time. What's it going to be in 4 years when we have, the Olympics? Right. People are going to want to stay in Burbank and get on the shuttle or a trolley to go around Burbank. I'll tell you, on a Friday or Saturday, I'll go down San Fernando Road, and the number of people walking from our local hotels down to the mall or down to where Superman is crazy. And I'm just thinking, you put a bus, even now with the kids, they would love to probably be on a bus and pose. And right like at the Disney or the Superman, you take a picture of that and you send that all over the world. Burbank is right there.
Right.
Our namesake, the media. I did hear yesterday, Mayor Bass said L.A. is the entertainment capital. You got to admit,
really,
every
Burbank.
show, Burbank is the media capital of the world. That was an idea of mine I came up several years ago. I gave it to Bob. They didn't go with it. But now that we have the czar and the mayor, I want to throw that out at you. It was an idea of mine, and I just think it would be.
Yeah, I think like the specialized trolley. There's some we looked into it. Trust me. The mayor at the time, the mayor said, "What about a trolley?" So we looked into it. You're kind of getting into the funny markets of vehicles when you're looking for trolleys. We found. I think a lot of people buy them and maybe it doesn't work, and then suddenly there's a used trolley market. Come to find out. So it's back to that. Different vehicles makes it hard to deploy service, but I do think your idea is interesting with just what you can do now with. You wrap cars all the time, right? And there's a vinyl wrap is very new now, modern, and you do.
We have a couple of companies in Burbank every year when we do the pink police car.
Oh yeah,
there's a company that wraps. So there's companies here in Burbank to keep the business here. I want to keep the business here, but West Coast Customs, those guys are pretty talented, and having it here. Right. You don't have to ship it to La Mirada to have it wrapped or something if it could be
come to our yard and have it done.
Exactly. And also, maybe financially, that's promotion for all these companies where we could get some money from them putting their own wrap on a bus.
Right.
Well, and totally agree, Ross. And I will just say a little bit of a preview for Tuesday night. I don't usually like to tip my hand. But one of my parting gifts to the Burbank community, I know we have folks like David that are working on this, but I really think that we need to develop a mayor's task force on on preparation for the 2028 Olympics, something that's streamlined and coordinated, a multi-year effort that's probably spearheaded by the city manager, but really bringing the departments together to talk about how we're going to take advantage of it, how we're going to look at creative ways to market Burbank Bus to feed into that. So great people are already working on it, but Tuesday night, that's what I'm going to ask for and leave it to my successor to.
Well, let's stay on that because Mayor Bass has said it's going to be a vehicle-free Olympics. Oh, well, thanks, Mayor Bass. Thanks to, I know she's on the Metro board.
Yes.
But suddenly, she's going to speak for every city that there is. And so I know that you guys probably just heard about that 1 or 2 weeks ago. It's all new information. So,
But you know,
what
you're
are you
right.
starting to do to plan for that?
No offense. 2028 is going to show up
Real
like
quick.
tomorrow.
That's right.
Not
We're
going to
gonna
do it
go,
right now.
wow. So it's like we finally have this freeway. How many years have you worked on this interchange and getting into Burbank and so forth? We got a great. I mean, you lost a lot of hair over this.
Yeah, I think that's where it all went.
I think you lost 10 years of your life too on quite a few when it ran out of money. And then how are we doing this? But you know, the soccer. What's happening with soccer? World Cup.
2026.
Yep.
I mean,
Couple beers.
if it's-
Bowl 2027. Olympics
Let's
2028.
start thinking this stuff. And Burbank, we're lucky to be financially in good shape here in town. But with these different things coming in, I see dollar signs. You know,
I totally agree. I'll be happy to ask for the item, and it'll be up to Mayor Perez and whoever follows after her to continue the work of that task force. And really comes back to our really incredible city manager and our talented staff to make sure that we are have a cohesive and frankly aggressive strategy to capture all those dollars that are going to be coming into the Los Angeles basin. And I think we'll do some good things. David's, I can already see the wheels turning.
Well, I think he had
Ideas.
he took the same gulp that I took when you said let's do it on a Burbank bus. When you heard the mayor says no vehicle, so David, what's going on? Are you starting to make, you got stuff in your head starting to spin, and how can we start to accomplish this?
So it's very
he didn't have that gray in that beard last week.
That's just the last few weeks. Thanks, Karen Bass.
So we the announcement about car free has been out for a little while. So, and there's been a little bit of chatter in some of the regional groups that me and my staff participate in, at Metro and other places. So we do know that was coming. That's going to be an issue. We in my staff originally thought or immediately thought we've got at least 2 venues nearby. We have the Rose Bowl to the east of us. We have the Sepulveda Basin to the west of us. We've got the airport. It's not LAX, but I'm sure many people are going to be coming in via, new terminal too. And so the interesting thing is connecting the only one-seat ride connection from the Hollywood Burbank Airport to the Red Line Metro rail system is Burbank Bus. And so that's one step right there is we're going to have everyone coming in car free wherever you're going to go, even if you're going and work, and staying in the mid city and going to all the venues there, you're going to need, if you're coming into Hollywood Burbank Airport, you're going to need to come through Burbank. So
And you'll be taking Burbank Bus.
we'll be taking Burbank Bus because it's the only way to get there. So looking at, just ideas about beefing up service during that time, maybe getting more transit capital during that time. Looking at everyone where they're staying in the hotels, talking with our economic development team, Visit Burbank, where do they expect to be the patterns of people coming and staying? The other thing too is I think the Olympics always had a legacy of, you're building stuff for the Olympics, but then it's a lasting investment in capital. Well, if there's money that's going to be out there for that, how can Burbank capture some of that just in terms of a fiscal? What are some of the things that we want to do anyways and dovetailing it into potential financial opportunities that come up? But it is you're right, it's going to be here before we know it. And also, unfortunately, it's really just starting to kick up in terms of the discussion about where's the money going to come from? Who do we need to coordinate with? That's all just starting.
Well, I know I've heard, you say, and I know for a fact that you traveled to other cities. You've gone up to Portland. You've gone up to different parts of the state of California to see how they're doing things. And that's why I say you are the czar. You are a transportation god. Now, you've been with the city how many years?
22 years.
So we're not going to see any retirement before the Olympics.
No, I'll be here. As long as you'll have me, I'll be here.
And am I correct? You're a Burbank grad?
Yes.
That's what I thought. A lot of people didn't know. You know these streets better than some of the tires that roll on them. I mean,
I got to ask. Burbank High or John Burroughs High? Okay.
well, that's why you are on that side of the bus and we're on this side. A couple other questions I know that we had that people ask us. One is, I'm trying to think, the routes and so forth. I know you change them every so on. They have dedicated pages. I know they put tweets out now, I think, of when you guys are on schedule and so forth. I mean, now with technology, Is that helping you from where you were 10 years ago? Because we've had Burbank Bus for...
Well, we've had Burbank Bus since 2005. Before that, we had basically what's now the pink route, the shuttle from when Metrolink opened. So we've had some sort of fixed route system since 1991, 1993, something like that. We were actually an early adopter of using Twitter to get the word out. We were also an early adopter of putting our system in Google. And then more recently, probably about 4 years ago, we moved our system onto a real-time transit system so that you can look at your phone and know where the bus physically is and when it's going to arrive at the next stop. And then most recently, we've actually kind of started to migrate some of our service information off of Twitter, and we've moved it on to the Burbank 311 app. So I encourage any Burbank Bus riders, existing or prospective, to download Burbank 311. You can see our route maps, you can download our schedules, and then you can also see the real-time where the buses are on the system at that time and getting next real-time arrival at whatever stop you're waiting for.
Oh, I got one more question before you jump into your next one.
Fine.
I know you both have taken a lot of hits. We read,
Really? I thought everyone liked me.
Well, when you put one-way traffic going down San Fernando Road, and Craig even went up and drove eastbound. I used to live at Olive and Kenneth. I had a balcony, and I could sit out there and count how many cars ran the stop sign or how many were going over 60 miles an hour. Now, again, that's a trial. I know everybody's complained and so forth. You've lost a little hair over it. Glad you haven't lost any sleep. The baby causes that. But you guys are going to reevaluate that. And we're in this safer streets mode. People, LA's doing it. They're doing it all over. And I last week saw a pretty big, show on the safer streets. It's working.
Oh, yeah.
The number of accidents are lessening, and that's a goal. We're tired. Sharon used to say it. She was a walker, and she said, you step off the curb, you're going to get killed. You hear it all the time. We're pretty lucky here. I know we talked about San Fernando Road a little. Olive, what's the little feedback that you could share with us with what you're digesting besides the complaints?
Back to council. Do you know when that's coming back to council? And
then after the rest of the year?
It was a 1 year pilot, right, David? So January to roughly January of next year.
So San Fernando reconfiguration is a 1 year pilot. We are going to be going back to the city council with a 6-month update, probably in October, so maybe like 7 months. What we're doing now is we're collecting data. We took a lot of data before we made the change, and now we're taking the same kind of data after we made the change, so we can see what the reconfiguration did to other traffic on other streets, what it did to speeds on the streets, what it did to pedestrian stop compliance, people stopping or not stopping for pedestrians, looking at pedestrian counts, bicycle counts. So we're collecting a lot of data and kind of crunching the numbers to see what the effects are. We're also doing a big outreach follow-up. So we want to hear from our business community members in downtown how things are doing. I think preliminarily it's a split. Some businesses really like it. Others are a little concerned about it. And so we're going to gather all that up and present our findings to the council in a few months. That's the 6-month mark. And then in the 1 year mark, we hope it's going to be successful. I am optimistic and think it's successful. I use it a lot as a walker, as a driver, as a patron of the businesses. So I'm hopeful. But we could, if we don't like it in a year, we have the ability to undo it and put it back the way it was. Again,
like you always say, paint is cheap.
Yep, paint. It's paint and plastic is what we say. Some of these improvements and the planners, and we just will.
But now with that, we're sitting right across from now. What's it called? The new apartments on First Street.
Yes.
That's how many. There's a couple thousand people going to be. You're going to have a lot more pedestrians, foot traffic, walking into the mall or walking up to the AMC, and I don't think people realize that private, you got a lot more foot traffic downtown than we've had in years. There's more places to live and so forth. So people don't understand you have to take that into consideration. I got one for you that Craig loves this street. He lives down by Riverside Drive, and he drives those restaurants looking for a parking spot. Then he goes home and calls
DoorDash.
to have his dinner delivered. But you and I have shared, and it's public knowledge, Riverside Drive is going to get a remake in or a look at too also, right?
So we've got, as you know, we've got 3 specific plans going, which are the long-range planning documents that govern what we want to do in different parts of our city. We have one for downtown. We have one for the airport area called the Golden State area, and we have an update of the media district specific plan. And so there's a land use part of it, and there's a mobility part of it. And so what we are looking at, and we have an administrative draft out for public review, and it's some of it's putting stuff out on the table and seeing what people think, seeing what sticks. But we got a lot of input and feedback from folks in the media district and in Toluca Lake about the walkability, about same messages we hear otherwise. It's too long to cross Riverside. The intersections are really skewed. People drive fast. There's I like the villagey kind of atmosphere on Riverside. I want cars to go slower. And so we are looking at the data and looking at the cars and the traffic in that area. And one thought we have and one opportunity is to reconfigure Riverside from Alameda through the media district so that it essentially matches what's in the Rancho, which is 1 lane in each direction, center turn lane, buffered bicycle lanes, and parking. So it's for all users.
Wasn't the BRT going to come in there anyway and do something in that area?
So the BRT, and you're bringing all the good ones in.
When you came on this show,
All the light and greasy topics.
you got
Somebody actually, we actually
Now he's not going to trust me to come
I
back.
gotta say, we actually do watch the meetings.
Yes. So
but we, as I said to David, we're not throwing him under the bus. This is all stuff that he's been working on.
Not at all.
And talk
Literally
about,
on the bus.
he's literally on the bus. So, we appreciate, and I know our followers appreciate you sharing this. You don't get this at a council meeting. You get up, you make a report to 5 council members, but the people can't. And we've had people ask us, Craig happens to live in that area. He's meeting with Mary over there where that 7-story project.
I've got things that I one day I counted. There's 18 restaurants in a 3-block area with no parking.
right.
And they continue to allow more restaurants to come in. I'm going, how do they do this? How is what makes sense? And then restaurants are failing there because they get no business.
You're going to have how many more living spots where the old Kinko's is or where the car wash was? You add up how many people on foot are going to be walking in that area. You got to do something to make it safer.
And the other thing too is we're giving them more options. We're making it nicer to walk down there and not just be fearful of all the chaos. We've got a lot of parking in those office buildings that even before COVID were not used on the weekends, and some restaurants actually share some of the office parking. So those are all policies that we're looking for input on in the media district specific plan and some of our other specific plans. And then one of them is, if Riverside is a village and you want it to be able to walk with your family and go to dinner, what can we do to the street to still provide good mobility, but also provide bicycle mobility, provide enhanced pedestrian mobility, and we think we can accommodate it with the vehicle traffic that's there. But again, this is what planning is. This is putting it out. Some of these are just ideas we put out. We see what the community thinks. We see what the council wants to do, and we're just trying to respond to what we're hearing from our outreach.
I think it sounds like you're good. Hollywood Boulevard just went through this, and they're getting a lot of flack by some. But if you really look at the design and the concept, it does look a whole lot safer.
Well, and people don't realize, you guys don't have a crystal ball. You don't have that snow ball, where you can, and wherever the snowflakes fall, you got to have this down pat and correct. Again, paint is cheap, but again, these buildings are going to go up. In 10 years, I've looked through some of my old pictures of this when First Street was over here, Front Street.
Yes.
And how that is all changed. I remember, some downtown has changed. We never thought some of these hotels were going to be here. So this is a great show. I mean, I know we've gone over our longer time and we've stolen it from
we're right on schedule here, actually.
Oh, great. We've stolen quite a bit, but
we don't have our big clock on the wall like we usually look at here.
But David, for me and Craig, we appreciate you sharing your time with us because...
Well, we're not done with them yet,
Oh, I know, but we got the mayor...
We're not done with them yet, okay? We've even gotten into... I'll get into the financing of the Burbank Bus system.
Sure.
So, how is the Burbank Bus system paid for?
So
Is this, is it through Measure A money, the city's general fund? Where is the funding really for Burbank Bus Council? How much is really the city of Burbank putting into this?
So get a little wonky about transportation finance for a minute. So first of all, it is not general fund. So it is we use monies earmarked specifically for transportation for Burbank Bus. So it's funding that can only be used for transportation. So I don't know if people know, but when you buy goods and services in LA County, you're assessed a sales tax. 2 pennies of every dollar, 2%. It's 4 half-cent sales taxes are gathered by the county for transportation purposes, and Metro manages all that money. So we call them propositions or measures: Proposition A, Proposition C, Measure R, and Measure M. And those all, for the 40-year span over time, those have been adopted by LA County voters. And so every city gets a share of the funds from those sales taxes for local programs that serve transportation. And so Burbank Bus is funded with Proposition A and Proposition C funds. The other big thing that we fund out of those two are the Metrolink stations, the downtown station. So it's transportation funds.
Is there a formula for the funding? Because I know Measure H, we've all learned what happened when you vote for something and then there's no caveat to how you get your money. Because I think we put in, for every dollar we put in, we don't get it back for our homeless thing. But what about for transportation? How's the formula that we get funding for?
You're wondering if there's some sort of like guaranteed local return funding.
Yes, the answer is yes. And that is definitely a critique of the Measure H, is there is no local return. And there's been discussions that if that's ever extended, that there probably should be a local return. But for transportation, all 4 of those sales taxes do have a local return element. So we get the county, for all the funds that are collected, anywhere from 15 to 25% is pulled aside and then sent back to the cities by population.
Okay.
And so for Burbank, for all 4 sales taxes, it's about $8.5 million a year that we get from those.
I find that interesting to do it by population and not by, like Ross said, we have about 220,000 a day in our city. And our population is only about 100,000.
Yep.
So you'd think that maybe we should.
We're a little underfunded in that regard. Yes.
What most people find, and I believe there's been studies, people that work here don't shop here, and if they shopped here, that money would stay here. But the money kind of comes back no matter what. Where you
directly, yes. It's collected at the county, and then it comes back to us formulaically by population.
So does that the same time it pays for the buses themselves, or I know we had a Hindenburg at one time.
So we
what was that bus? It ran on what was it?
We had a hydrogen bus. We were bleeding edge, and it.
I don't think it ever went out one day.
It didn't go out, so we. So the operation.
I had to bring it up. I'm sorry. I know
that bus is in your backyard as a plant.
No, that bus was disassembled. So we fund through those sales taxes, the revenue we get from the sales taxes for the operations, and some of the capital cost of the buses. But we've also been very fortunate over the years that our buses have all been the fixed route buses, the larger ones, have all been funded with grants. Either federal grants or grants through Metro, where we've only had to pay either nothing or like a 20% local match. And some of that money has come from developer fees. So all of the impacts financially for Burbank Bus have been off of the general fund.
Including the maintenance of the buses?
Including the maintenance. All of that is paid for.
Yeah, I do ask all the little questions too.
All the local return funds.
Okay, you just threw it out there, the developers. I know Craig and I, we talk about this project on Empire, 7 stories with 7 parking spaces.
Yes.
But they have a bus stop across
the street. We know that came from the state. A lot of people, you see it, Facebook, social media, people go, why are those city planners? It's not you. It is not the city that is making those decisions. Comes from...
Or just complying with state law.
Exactly. And do you foresee that project? Now, Craig had told me there were 2 other projects there that got canceled.
That's correct. There were 2 projects. As it stands right now, I don't believe those 2 projects will be moving forward.
So the one that is built, I know a lot of it is low cost.
All of it is.
Section 8.
100% affordable.
All of it is.
South.
Now, a lot of those people don't own cars. Insurance, especially with the rate of insurance going up, you can't afford driving a car now. But a lot of those people will take, you hope,
Yes.
public transportation and so forth.
Yes, but not everyone will. And I think, as a planner, definitely on the broader scale, where we tend to overbuild parking at the expense of other modes, and there's some bad effects to that. But I think the state kind of regulations that are foisted upon us are a little bit like just smashing the hammer without any nuance of the situation. And I think we unfortunately are going to be responding to that, and we are. Also, as part of those specific plans, a big component of those policies is looking at what we call neighborhood protection. So traditionally, it's been neighborhood protection about traffic coming in from all the office buildings, but we're finding that the new neighborhood protection is also added to that is how do we manage the parking of developments that may have less parking, where we understand that people are still going to have cars, and how do we now manage what's going to be now more sharing of parking on our city streets so that we can kind of protect the existing neighborhoods that have the parking that they rely on, and then trying to accommodate these new developments that may invoke laws to not have parking. And those laws are only getting bigger, particularly in downtown. There is really no need to build. We cannot impose parking requirements anymore. So if you're near transit,
didn't know that.
Developers of any housing, office, if you meet the requirements of that state law, we cannot compel you to build parking. Now, I'm hoping the market, you as a developer, you necessarily probably can't build a successful building without some parking. So what it does is let the developer and lets the market figure out how much parking is needed. Because again, I think the cities maybe were a little too conservative with parking. But what the state did is, again, with this hammer and smashed and said, no parking. We can't ask for it at all. And so we're going to be responding to that through our specific plan.
Well, I think one of the problems is, I'm going to ask you a question. You have no idea really the exact number, but do you know how many cities are in the state of California?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds.
Okay, so hundreds and hundreds. And they make a law that a city has to follow, but every city is different.
Yeah.
So you can't really put a blanket law like they're doing, because that law may work for Eureka, but it doesn't work for Burbank. And I don't think they take that into consideration when they just put these, laws in transportation parking.
Exactly what Craig says. I don't think the public, they want to blame you. It's not you. It's not our city planners. Yeah, not you, not our.
It's really my fault. I know.
Yeah.
Don't say me before an election. No. Wait till.
But the thing is, people don't get, and people are very impatient, as you know. Verdugo. I used to live at Verdugo and Buena Vista. I could look out my kitchen window and see how many people use that bike lane. People do use the bike lane, folks. I've watched people sit and cleaning my dishes and count 50 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Use it. And if people say nobody ever uses a bike lane, yes, they do.
And by the way, we reduced major crashes by 30%. So if this was Vision Zero before Vision Zero was a thing, was Verdugo. I'm actually very proud of that project. We had a safety benefit. We had a mobility benefit. And quite frankly, if I'm coming across town to go home from the west, I use Verdugo.
So do I, absolutely.
And then the one thing I just want to tack onto this, guys, is I totally hear the question. I agree with you, and I agree with David. Look, at the end of the day, the solution that's being handed out from Sacramento, it's a one-size-fits-all solution. And look, I don't have all the answers, but I think the reason why is, let me ask you this. How many of our state legislators have been a planner? How many of them have served on a planning commission? How many of them have served on a city council? In LA especially, it's often the other way around. It's an introductory or entry-level political position, and then you see them running for LA City Council. Well, that's how you lose all the nuance. You haven't had to sit in the hearing and balance these competing interests of, yes, we need to densify, we need to add more housing, but how do you preserve quality of life? And people have very real concerns about safety on roadways.
Well, with that, Mayor, I will say, and I applaud your department, we are very fortunate not only to have David Kriske, born and raised here, but also his fellow city employees in planning and traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Long-term employees. We are very fortunate. We don't bring people in and they're here a month or two. And then go to Pasadena. We're real fortunate long-term employees that walk and drive I always say a lot of city employees don't live in Burbank. They can't afford to, but they drive in. But your department, I will say, majority of you live right here. So you see it. It's not that you come from out of town and go to your office and not see the traffic on Olive or Verdugo or so forth. You've lived here. You know it.
And I would say even my staff that don't live here, Burbank becomes their adopted home, and I can guarantee you they have just a vested interest in making sure that our community is safe and that is operating efficiently. I think definitely my staff is very excited about the Safer Streets Burbank initiative that the council has directed us to look into, because it's really kind of getting to the crux of what people are concerned about, which is safety and walkability, and just, I want my city to be pleasant and safe and being able to enjoy it. So I would say, if we live in town, of course we are we want to be concerned about our city, but I think even if you work here, this becomes your second home, becomes your adopted home, and I think that is pervasive, definitely in my staff, and I think in all of, I think most.
Well, it's funny. I sit on the Magnolia Park Merchants Board, and Food Truck Friday night. That first hour are the new families in Burbank pushing the stroller, and then that next hour are the kids that don't need the stroller. Burbank's changed. I've lived here all my life, 68, 69 years. Craig's right behind me. We've seen how this city changed. I remember when we didn't have any high rises, and so forth. It's changing, and the people that are living here that are pushing those strollers aren't driving 60, 70 miles an hour because they have kids. And so our whole demographics are changing a lot.
Well, and the two other points, and I know you guys have more questions, so we'll get to it. But, just to go back to a related and really an interconnected issue, housing. We have a 3-to-1 jobs to housing ratio in Burbank. So whether we like it or not, a lot of folks that can't afford or don't live in Burbank are going to be commuting in daily, in and out of our city. And so, to David's point, they, of course, have to be part of what we take into account when we're designing our public transportation system. But the other thing I would say is, look, at the end of the day, I like to think that with more practical local experience and more common sense, we can begin to have better solutions coming out of our state capital. But in the meantime, this does speak to the fact that as we're looking at these changes in law that are promoting more density in our community, that is why I know there are those out there, not anyone here, but there are those who are critical of Burbank Bus. Burbank Bus and our entire patchwork of public transit is so critical to addressing that issue. To everyone who has concerns about densification, we have to build a more robust public transit system to provide for the influx of residents who are going to be here. They're already here. They're coming. As we build up more, we need more public transportation.
Agreed. Well, your job is guaranteed for several years. You don't have to worry about that. I want to throw a question at you. I know Craig and I, we've debated about it, and I threw it at you. Every so often you'll see a scooter on a corner. And you and I ask, they're not allowed in Burbank. There is a geo system that they come into Burbank, or you can't rent them here. But every so often you see them. If people see them, do they get on the 311 app and report it, and it'll get picked up by the company?
Yes. I think that's the best way to handle it. Luckily, I have a good kind of informal relationship with some of the scooters, and I feel like after the boom of the scooter and the kind of the hysteria of just concern about it, it has died down, and it's still an issue, but it's not I don't get as many complaints as I used to. And yes, you are correct that they are not legal to rent in Burbank. The municipal code does not allow it. You can have a personal scooter; those are allowed, and you can ride them if you are on a bird or a scooter. You can ride it into Burbank. Some of them have geofenced where that electronically will be disabled.
But it's on the borders.
So they're all by the borders and get disabled once you drop them in Burbank. But we do. It's complaint based. If we see them, we will contact them, and they've been decent about picking them up and.
I will tell you, I very seldom I go out of Burbank. I got to get permission to leave the outskirts of Burbank.
I give you permission anytime, Ross.
Thank you very much. You see them in other cities, and it's just they're blocking handicap ramps. They're in the way. That's one thing I will say in Burbank. You can walk down the sidewalk, and you won't see a pile of them. The other thing is being bike riders. Are we going to change some laws about riding on sidewalks, some bicycle laws and so forth? Because now with these electronic bikes, I'm seeing some of the beach communities are having a real problem with them.
Well, 10, 12-year-old kids are on these things.
Right. And our Chandler bike path, you guys were there. I was homesick. But they're getting used in, like Craig said, some of these motorized scooters are passing people. You know, like, wow.
Right.
Are we going to be looking at some laws about changing some of that?
So one member of my staff has been tracking the law around that. And again, the state has kind of set the table for what we can regulate. And so we as cities are not allowed to restrict them. So we must allow them generally where bicycles are allowed. However, there are speed limits, and the real egregious ones that are super fast are probably modified. And so there is a law that says now that it is not legal to modify or to sell scooters that can be modified beyond the limits. And so if we do have a problem with really fast ones that are beyond the legal limits of e-bikes, that is against the law. But if you are on a scooter that is lawful, lawfully have the right speed limits, and it's the lawfully defined e-bike, we must allow it in our bike facilities.
Well, let's stay with the future a little bit. And I know you don't have an answer for this, but I talked
Flying
about
cars?
No, they promised
No previews for State of the City, Ross.
We were promised flying cars back in the '60s. By the way, I remember being in Stevenson, and they were talking about by 2000 we'll all have flying cars.
I'm working on it for you, Craig. I got you.
Anyhow, but
decade.
Instead of flying cars, how about self-driving cars?
Oh, autonomous.
My thing is, I guess we can't stop them coming to Burbank. I don't know if we have that authority or not. But let's say a driverless car comes into Burbank, and please don't let it happen, but it runs into somebody and it kills somebody. If it's usually a driver, you can charge that driver with vehicular manslaughter, all kinds of. Who do you charge if the car has no driver? If the car was at fault? Or it hits somebody for insurance. You can't say, well, where's your insurance? The car just will honk at you or something.
Well, I mean,
what can we do about that? That's a future problem. I think we may be having.
I'll answer the legal aspect of that question, and then I'll toss it over to David, because I don't know if staff has looked at the prevalence of autonomous vehicles. Now we're going to regulate it yet, but I will say, look, you can't really, I guess you can charge a corporation under California law, but it's really hard to do. So no, if an autonomous vehicle causes an accident, no one's going to be charged with a crime. But just like anyone else operating a motor vehicle on the roadway, they have to have basic insurance, right? So if there's an accident, there will always be a civil remedy that's available to the aggrieved party. And before I hand it over to David, I would just say, look, autonomous vehicles, they're concerning to me, much like artificial intelligence. And yet that genie is out of the bottle. It is an emerging technology. We're going to see more of it. And so I think the conversation should rightfully be, how do we regulate that? And, like we deal with housing and transportation, the state really likes to preempt a lot and say, what you should do and, what the basic...
Allowed train.
It's a loud train.
An older one.
Oh.
Just think what we had before autonomous cars. We had locomotives.
That's true. That's true. Wait. So sorry. So David, I mean, tell me, is staff working on anything yet, or would you need direction?
Not yet. So and I don't have a lot of knowledge about the state of autonomous cars, but I know that they're limited to certain areas. They have come to Los Angeles, I think,
right,
as a Waymo maybe is here.
Right.
Yeah.
They can only operate in certain areas. So I suspect we at some point will need to be prepared to see how that plays out, whether the state kind of takes a hands-off approach, whether they regulate it a certain way. How does the safety work? I think the thing that I've kind of thought about, or we've thought about, is autonomous vehicles. They still don't solve some of the other problems we have with vehicles, which is the congestion, the pollution, the VMT. And so, it's just like with Uber and Lyft brought a lot of mobility benefits, but it also brought a lot of side effects, and the fundamentals are still there. And I think, again, there's a place for transit. There's a place for walkability. There's a place for biking. There's a place for putting people closer to places they want to go to and setting our land use. So all those things that we've been talking about are still there, even with autonomous vehicles. The fundamentals are still there.
The only other thing I'd add on to that, great explanation, David, is just that, look, baked into our city's legislative platform, I mean, at the heart of it, is we believe that cities should have more local control, that we should really be deciding what rules and regulations best fit Burbank. And so, a lot of what Sacramento's talking about, it's still yet to be determined what the regulations might look like. But I think we and our advocates in Sacramento are always going to continue to push for the fact that Burbank knows best. We know what is a best solution for our streets. And so we're going to be part of those conversations over the next decade about autonomous vehicles and whether they're in our community.
Okay, my last question. I promised my last question. But if I don't get into this, I know people are going to send me emails. The BRT on Olives.
He saved the best for last.
We're I know it's about ready to, it's in, we've sent the letter and, everything else, and we're not for.
And you guys are still talking.
We're still talking. We want the mixed flow because at the most, it'll save 1 to 2 minutes, which really, compared to somebody in their car, might be 10 minutes now because of being one lane. So that's coming. I think it's coming back before you leave, or I'm not sure if it is. But where are we on the Olive? I think most of the BRT we're all in accordance with.
So
what about the Olive section? Where are we with that? And what can you tell people on the show here?
I'll let David set the table just factually where we're at. I feel like as a policymaker, I feel like I should jump in and answer the question about what the council is going to do. But David, can you remind me, is it coming back next Tuesday, an update from the subcommittee on that?
We are due an update generally. It's on our to-do list from the council. So I don't know whether it may not be next week, but it is soon with an update on we have
likely while I'm on the council still.
Yes, within a month or so at the most. So we, the city council, so when the Metro Board of Directors approved the project, the city council was supportive of the project with a couple of issues to work out. The biggest one was the section of Olive Avenue between Buena Vista and Lake Street, or basically the 5. Metro wants to convert one travel lane into a bus lane, and the city council said, we want to see essentially the ridership prove that it's worth taking the lane from the cars and causing those secondary effects, only if the ridership on the BRT justifies taking up that lane within 3 years. Because again, it's like we talked about. It's that part of it is just paint. So that's the city council's position. Metro Board's position is a little bit different. They want the bus lane on that stretch. In March of this year, we took an agreement to the council, which was approved, which basically said it outlined how we're going to work with Metro to deliver the project. And part of course, that was the conversation that what do we do about this disagreement? And so, for a variety of reasons, we kind of were silent in the agreement about our disagreement because we want to work together, and there's lots of other benefits to working with Metro rather than being adversarial with Metro to deliver this project. So the agreement is silent on that, but our council position is the same, is that we want mixed flow on that stretch until the ridership proves that it's worth taking the lane. And so then the council directed us to work with Metro on that issue. Again, luckily that design part of the project is not a big deal to go one way or the other. All of the stations and the infrastructure, all that is kind of built regardless of what the configuration on that one stretch is going to look like. So we can work with Metro while we work out our bigger disagreement over this section. So the council directed us to continue working with Metro and then assigned a subcommittee of our council, 2 members, Councilmember Mullins and Councilmember Takahashi, to serve as staff's kind of sounding board on issues and also help us as staff communicate to Metro that our position, but from an elected official standpoint. Because sometimes we can say whatever we can, and it's maybe Metro staff and Burbank staff, and we're all just kind of looking. We need at this point, it's a policy decision, and we need the elected officials to be engaged, and that's what that subcommittee is going to do.
And that was a very good decision. I know that night that you guys were voting on that, Pamela, as Craig learned the other day, rides a bike, takes a bus. I don't know.
Very passionate about transportation.
Yeah, and Zazette, I don't know how many times she's been on a bus, but I get, that relationship. And our council might be changing here in a couple of months and so forth. So, you don't want to be changing players in the middle. That is a lot of people were worried about that project. I know that. You think a timeline will it be done before the Olympics?
Yes, it is one of the projects Metro's identified as needing to be in place before the Olympics. So they think it'll be open in 2027.
which would probably require permits being pulled next year. And I think there's still some discrepancy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Metro is still kind of going back to this talking point of, do they really need to, are they subject to Burbank permitting process?
Yes, that was a brief discussion, but one thing we were recommending that the council approve the agreement from March, and again, kind of be silent on the legal part of the disagreement over the lanes, is because the cooperative agreement gives the city, it basically, Metro agrees to abide by our rules.
And we approved it. We wanted to sign it.
Yes.
Did Metro approve it? I don't think.
We are still working. They brought some other minor legal changes back to us after, and so we're working through it. But we think we're in a good spot, and
Wonderful.
we've been proceeding as if it's approved in terms of cooperating, and I think we're going to have that signed soon.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to admit. Do you have any follow up on that? Because I got one more question here, which I promised I wouldn't ask, but because I've got the transportation guru here.
Is it BRT related though?
No, it is not. Do you have something you want to add on? I'm sorry. Once again, it's ask the mayor, not interrupt the mayor. My apologies.
You are asking the mayor, as far as I'm concerned. No. I'll just quickly say. So, David perfectly described the project, where it stands. I just want to reiterate, because I have gotten this question in the community. Although one of our colleagues did go to a Metro board meeting, an official change of position from the city would only come from a majority vote of the city council, and that would be communicated through the city manager's office, through our staff, or through the mayor, or from some official designated spokesman for the city. The only thing I would add personally, not speaking for my colleagues, not speaking for the council, is that to echo a point that David made, I do not think that Burbank I've said this before, I don't think Burbank benefits from taking an adversarial position with Metro. There is a time and a place for the adults in the room to sit down at the table and work out a solution. And I think that 9 times out of 10 in life, there is always a solution to be had. And that's very much where in the last months of my mayorship and on council, I've moved past the point of the rhetoric and the fiery passion. I get it. I get people have their perspective, but we need to work together and find a long-term solution here. And that means treating Metro as a regional partner that they are. That doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything, but we need to sit down like adults at the table. And I know our staff
that's a very, very good point. I don't think people understand. You've made it very clear. There's projects other than
any.
You're sitting on one. We get money from Metro. We get money just a little. You got to work.
Metro's not the enemy, as some in the community would have us believe.
You got to play in the sandbox, and we've learned this, to make things work, and people, I don't think they have the patience. They don't have the thinking. You've made it very clear. You don't come into your office and sit on your hands for a day and think, oh, what can I work on today? You have so much on your plate in transportation and planning. I will say, from everybody from Patrick Prescott, the director, on down, you guys are really working. Burbank works pretty darn good all over. Look at it. And you got to applaud the homework you do, the work you put in, and what we get out of it. You had another question.
I got one more. Because I've got the two best people ask the question. I probably don't have an answer to this, but how many, I doubt one of you were probably out much at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but so many times we're out and we're driving down the street and we get a red light. Okay, I get it. We get a red light. And then you look at the other, and it says walk on the other side. And the entire time you sit at that red light for 2 or 3 minutes, not one car has gone in the other direction. Why is it at nighttime that we have to have the walk signal? Because these signals are all more computerized now. Why do we have to have the walk signals working? Why can't they just have a stop, and if no cars are coming and the sensors don't, you get a green the other way and the speed thing is up? Because you're waiting 2 or 3 minutes and there's nobody else on the street. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying, right? Is there anything to that that's... am I just not a patient person?
I think I can at least give David an entry point here. A little bit of that really is my fault. Not my singularly, but look, after that horrible traffic fatality on Glen Oaks a number of years ago, the council made a policy decision that we wanted to reconfigure our lights, in the city of Burbank. What we were aiming to have less of are those long stretches of road with endless green lights. As much as that's great for the motorist, I think the council at the time, and I certainly felt that could be not necessarily the best environment for good motorist practices for safe streets. And so we asked our staff to look at how we could redo the timing of the lights so that you do hit a few more red lights. So it was very much an early policy decision, and in many ways an early iteration of where the council has come today. And that is asking staff to have the Safer Streets Burbank plan, to really prioritize other modes of transportation and to prioritize safety over the fast movement of
I can
cars.
live the red lights. It's just the amount of time you're waiting.
I mean, David, I'm sure there's more you'd add.
Yes, I think it's that. It's also, we have a lot of technology, but to develop an individual time of day plan for every minute of the day is a lot of work. So we may have a street that's kind of prioritized because during the day there's lots of traffic, and we don't have a special plan for late at night to address that. The other thing too is, I'll put it on the other foot. When have you come up to a light to cross Magnolia or cross a major arterial, and you just missed the window of opportunity to hit the button, and you're like, but if the light had given you a walk because you were 5 steps away, how much greater would your life have been, or your walk that day to make it across? And it just, now I got to wait, So as to the mayor's point, we, as part of Safer Streets and just some of our complete streets policies, we've always and continue. The car will always still, for the foreseeable future, be the dominant form of getting around in Burbank. But it doesn't have to be so biased to be the only form. And if we give just a little bit on the margins, I think we can get a lot of safety improvements. We can get a lot of just better experience to if you're walking or biking. So how can we still have a good operating system, but also give back a little bit where it makes sense to make the other ways to get around a little more convenient? That's part of it too. But I think offline, send me the location and we will look into it.
Well,
it could also just be broken.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So we will,
it's funny. One of the city engineers once told me, that happens, walk up to the box and slap it once, the light will change. And I did that, and I said, maybe the clock in there still, they had some dust in it. Well, they say the 3 E's, enforcement, education, and engineering. I live up on the hill. They've just changed every light along Glen Oaks. There's new lights. There's some new left-hand turn around Burbank High that at night they don't change as much as they do during the day. I will say that education part, Burbank police don't want to cite. People don't understand. They're not out there to do the enforcement. They'd rather do education. But lately, we've heard people driving out on San Fernando Road. The police department clocked somebody at 129 miles an hour. That's enforcement. You get your car impounded. And again, once the lights get changed on Glen Oaks, they've been doing that. Police department impounds cars. So everything people don't understand. Craig and I see it all the time. These cars that are whizzing by us. I'm getting old, but I just can't believe how many people are whizzing and flying, and it's slow down, folks.
You can't solve stupid sometimes.
I threw.
Yeah. Anything else for us, Ross?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to thank your boss, Patrick Prescott, who I know gave you permission to come to us. The city attorney, Joe McDougall, who everything got run by. Mayor, this mayor's show, Craig and I love doing it with you.
Same.
And very, very good. Our city PIO, Jonathan, Karen Pan. I want to throw those names out.
Shout out to Jonathan and team.
His team is fantastic. Yep. He works with us. One of the best PIOs that our city has seen in many years.
Don't forget about Legend. We always talk about Legend. I saw Legend on the bike path the other day, setting up the PA system.
We work with quite a few of you. When we saw you at the Road Kings car show, we threw this at you. You turned white. I thought I was going to have to call paramedics for you. It wasn't that bad now, was it, David? We promised you we wouldn't throw you under the bus. And for the Burbank, viewers, this is a great opportunity to see you. And you answered, you helped the mayor out. We appreciate so much.
We want to hear from our residents. We want to hear from people that work here. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? There's lots of opportunity. If you don't think something's being run properly with transportation, there's opportunities with our specific plans. There's going to be opportunities with our transit study that's going to be starting later this year. There's opportunities with the San Fernando reconfiguration. So we want to hear from the community on what some of these ideas are, what's working for them, what could we do to improve their lives. I think that's really the message I want to give out.
Do you want people's email, your email for people to send to? Okay,
We'll throw that up on the screen. But, you made a good point there. Every so on you read, you get one or two people, oh, the city's not listening to us. They don't realize Burbank's 100,000 people. You are hearing from people. You are taking note. You are listening to the feedback, and they might not be able to answer them specifically or correct what they don't like. But you know what? Think about our community. I look at the news all the time. I'm seeing so much traffic accidents and traffic problems in Inglewood now and everything. I think we got it. We're really putting it together.
Yep.
And you know who we didn't forget? We forgot to thank.
Who was that?
Our city manager who runs it all. Justin and Courtney do a fantastic job. They have been long-term employees. You've worked with them for many years, 20, I think. Justin's 30 some odd. They have their thumbprint on the city of Burbank. And from graffiti, from traffic, from the animal shelter, you name it, from our police department to fire department. Mike Davis once said it, where can you call a 3-digit number, 911, and you're guaranteed to see somebody at your door in 3 minutes?
Right.
Not many cities can say that.
Not at all.
I think it's time to wrap up.
I think, does the mayor get anything else?
Hold on. Hold on. Our transportation guru, so excited that you were here today and had answers. But the last thing we always do is we ask the mayor, what's on the mayor's mind?
Right.
What do you got for us to wrap up the show today?
Well, I thank you all for having us. And David, thank you again for being here. You made me look good.
Pleasure.
No, I think what's on my mind is those zingers from the last meeting. Me and Joe and Justin going at it. I know they only have 100+ days to deal with me, but no. What's really on my mind is that as I look at the last few months of my term, I'm not done governing, and there's a lot, as we talked about, there's a lot of really critical decisions and opportunities for public input that are going to happen over the next couple months between now and the end of the year. And I want to focus on getting good things done, and we want to hear from our community. So in that vein, and quickly, just a couple opportunities for public engagement. So Council is going to continue its conversation, and forgive me, I'm just looking off my phone here. We have the potential rent cap community meetings, 3 of them, Saturday, September 7th, 9 a.m., Jocelyn Center. Monday, September 9th, that's virtual at noon. Thursday, September 12th, 6 p.m. at the Los Angeles Marriott at the Burbank Airport. Tuesday, September 17th, 6 p.m. virtual. And Wednesday, September 25th, 6 p.m. at Hotel Burbank. So if you care about that issue, if you have a thought, if you want to give feedback to our staff and the consultant, there's your chance. 3 in person and 2 virtual meetings. Come out and tell us what you want to say. I also want to mention that we have 11 more days for the Elephant Parade in Burbank. So if you haven't already checked out that really great artistic exhibit, you got 11 more days to do it.
I heard you can buy one of those elephants, by the way. They're up for sale.
Oh,
yeah, they're actually starting to sell them.
It's pretty impressive. And they do actually very similar art exhibits like around, like Portland, Oregon is doing like a cat exhibit, same concept this year. It's a real thing. I don't make enough to buy an elephant, but
where would I put it?
Or clean it up, after it either, I'll tell you.
That's right. 2 more quick things, guys. Fall Festival, Saturday, September 7th. It's coming up real quick. Johnny Carson Park, 4 to 7 p.m. They're going to have music, vendor booths, food, and a movie screening of The Nightmare Before Christmas. So
that got postponed from last year, as I remember.
It did. And
it got rained both times.
It definitely did. And what a great way to do what we love in Burbank, come together as a community and have some fun in Johnny Carson Park.
And did I not just see yesterday that, who wrote that? Tim Burton is getting a star on Hollywood Boulevard.
There you go.
That
Burbank High graduate.
That is very true. And then last thing, this is new, but it's something really exciting because in my opinion, we don't do nearly enough for our senior population. There's a 55 and beyond resource fair. It's entirely free.
Not talking to just you and me.
Don't worry, I'm not that far behind.
I did look at this, by the way. I thought, that's interesting.
It's cool, right?
Yes.
So Jocelyn Center, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., September 11th. So those are just some of the ways that you can get involved. And I'll be here next month and the month after that and the month after that.
Oh, you know what? You left one thing off that you were coming up on, and people can go to, we've been doing for several years, the State of the City.
Yes.
And you have a great topic, and, I'm going to plug it out there. The public can buy tickets to go to that.
And
If you want to know what's going on in the
And
city.
it sells out every year too. So
Yes,
buy those tickets.
600 people at the
Yeah.
Marriott. And I know you and our PIO have been smoking on things.
We got a
I
lot.
shouldn't say that.
We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. You can also attend for free. There's going to be a public comment period. And I don't want to make any over promises, but we're trying to see if we could live stream it as well. Obviously, it's a great way to benefit the chamber and support a great community partner. But if cost really is prohibitive, we want everyone to hear the message. And I'll just close with this. The theme is Back to the Future. It's about where we've been and where we're going. And I can't think of a better place to have had that conversation.
Am I going to see you in a DeLorean flying in?
You just might, but I will say this. Where we're going, Ross, we don't need roads.
What a way to end the show. David, again, thank you so much. I mean,
For having me, I appreciate it.
we hope you come back. You found that we're not that, we won't throw you under the bus even. And I will tell you, people, we got to share. The temperature in this bus has been perfect as the hottest day of Burbank. And we want to thank the driver, our crew, who has been, moving the cameras around, everything. This is an adventure for My Burbank Talks to come out and do something like this. And it was your idea. Thank you.
You need to tell Nikki to one up that next year.
Oh no! Please.
Well, yeah, we met our match. Okay,
Somebody's got to figure out how to do all this in the logistics. That's
fair point.
But when you go back to work tomorrow, I know you have staff in the morning and they'll see that you lived through it, And again, thank you very much. We're happy to have you and great to thank you for everything you do for the city of Burbank.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you.
As
Absolutely.
many times as we might have.
And you always respond to me every time too, which I always have appreciated. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyhow, for Ross Benson and David Kriske, and of course Mayor Nick Schultz, Craig Sherwood saying thank you very much. We're glad you watched a special edition of Ask the Mayor, and we will see you next month.
Thank you for watching the latest My Burbank video. If you have it in your heart, please consider helping us by clicking on the super thanks down below. Or even better, go to our channel and consider a membership. Your support is what keeps My Burbank going strong.